Namaste, and welcome to our continuing series, Savitri Satsang, in which we go through Savitri very, very slowly to aspire that it will come into our souls, not try to understand it fully with our mind, but a mental understanding has also its value. So we try to work on all planes. Last week we saw and read this marvelous description of Savitri. And we found out that even her gulfs, those depths, wide separations, were secrecies of light. And at once she was the stillness and the word, and so many other things. Love comes into her. And in her, in Savitri, he found a vastness like his own. So today we're going to begin with the line, "Till then, no mournful line had barred this ray." Oh, what is this ray? This ray is the sun that Savitri is. We have a mournful line, no mournful line, no gloomy line, no somber, dreary line. Had barred this way. A bar is anything that obstructs us. So nothing could bar her. Till then, no mournful line had barred this ray. Full stop. On the frail breast of this precarious earth. What is this frail breast? Something that is easily broken or destroyed, or something fragile. Precarious, almost synonymous. It's lacking in security or stability, subject to chance or unknown conditions. So we are seeing now that Savitri has entered this precarious earth, and it has a frail breast because it is made of matter and not totally yet aware of the divine presence within it, as we are not aware of the divine presence in our mind, in our heart, in our vital, in our body. So now he says, on the frail breast of this precarious earth, since her orbed sight in its breath-fastened house. Now, interesting line. Orbed, of course, has to do with her eyes. Her eyesight, eyeball, poetically. And what is this breath-fastened house? Well, she has taken birth on earth. And therefore she's in a breath-fastened house. And that house is the body. So, since her orbed sight in its breath-fastened house, opening in sympathy with happier stars, well, that's where she came from. She was in sympathy with these happier stars. And where are they? Where life is not exposed to sorrowful change. So she came from there, where life was not exposed to any sorrowful change. Remembered beauty, death-claimed lids ignore. Well, that's us. We're death-claimed lids. Our eyes ignore this beauty that was to her always remembered. So she remembered beauty that death-claimed lids ignore. Sometimes we have an opening into beauty. We see a tinge of beauty in each other. We feel something beautiful in a person's walk, a person's speech, a person's manner. But mostly we don't see it constantly and at every moment. We see a lot of negativity, a lot of anger, a lot of violence. But here, Savitri, remembered beauty, death claimed lids ignore. And then she wonders, and wondered at this world of fragile forms. Well, we're all fragile. We get sick, we get injured, we die. We're a fragile form. We're not a fixed form. We're not a supramentalized being yet. So we are in a world, and in that world we are fragile forms. Now, we have this line, carried on canvas strips of shimmering time. So, first of all, we have Savitri. Since her orbed sight in its breath-fastened house, opening in sympathy with happier stars, where life is not exposed to sorrowful change, remembered beauty, death-claimed lids ignore, and wondered at this world of fragile forms, carried on canvas strips of shimmering time. Now, a canvas strip is sort of like a background against which events unfold. So you can have a painting on canvas strip and you see it, but the canvas strip is simply the background. The artwork is totally different. But she's talking about this world of fragile forms, us, who are carried as on canvas strips of shimmering time. Shimmering is a tremulous, flickering light, not a strong light. So we're seeing what she is seeing now. And this is very, very important. Sri Aurobindo capitalizes time. And he tells us that time and space are not limited. They are infinite. For us, because we live in ignorance, time is limited. Oh, I only have 10 days left to do this. Oh, I have to go here tomorrow. I don't have enough space. So time and space for us are very encapsulated, very, very limited. And, of course, we have to get over them. So he says they are the terms of an extension of consciousness in which things take place, time and space. And, of course, he says, in space there is no near or far, no here or there. The timeless eternal is not measurable by years or hours or eons. It has been described as the eternal moment. Now we go and we begin to see why Savitri is here. I know we've only discussed 5 or 6 lines, but this is very important. The impunity of unborn mites was hers. So first of all, we see that the capital M is that the M is capitalized. Then we have this impunity. And impunity is an immunity from detrimental effects. I have an impunity towards all disease. Disease can't touch me. So it can't touch Savitri also. The impunity of unborn mites. Now, unborn, of course, is from the transcendental, because it's from the highest of the highest realms. When the supermind wants to create, it doesn't create by itself. It creates by going into the overmind, and the overmind creates everything. So we see that these impunity of unborn mights was hers. Now, might, of course, is power, force. And in Savitri, who is the sun, it is very powerful. But there's a full stop after hers. And now he's going to tell us what she is like. Although she leaned to bear the human load, her walk kept still the measures of the gods. I remember Mother walking out of the playground, and it was exactly that image that I saw. It was like, well, it was the Divine Mother walking away from her seat and out the door. And I felt it. The measures of the gods, the actions, the procedures of the gods. Her walk kept still the measures of the gods. Earth's breath had failed to stain that brilliant glass. Very important word. The breath of earth, the atmosphere of earth, had failed to stain this perfection of Savitri. A glass is like a mirror that we look into, and it had failed to stain that brilliant glass. Unsmeared with the dust of our mortal atmosphere, it still reflected heaven's spiritual joy. So nothing could stain Savitri, nothing could stain the Divine Mother. Earth's breath had failed to stain that brilliant glass. Unsmeared, not dirty, not sullied, not soiled. Unsmeared with the dust of our mortal atmosphere, it still reflected heaven's spiritual joy. Almost, they saw, who lived within her light, within Savitri's light, her playmate in the sempiternal spheres. The sempiternal spheres are everlasting spheres. And she always had a playmate, and we're going to find out about that playmate now. But that playmate has descended from its unattainable realms in her attracting Advent's luminous wake. Okay, the wake, of course, is the course, the track of something. And the Advent is always applied poetically to an arrival or an important epoch-making arrival. Savitri's coming to Earth is exactly that. So, what is this playmate of hers? The white fire dragon bird of endless bliss. It's going to go above her head, but I want to talk to you a little bit about this white fire dragon bird. First of all, Nolini told me that it's a composite bird from Sri Aurobindo. It is not mythology. It's an actual bird. Amal says it's part of the fauna of an occult region. And Madhav Pandit told me the dragon bird is the vast enveloping bird of bliss. White to signify purity, and fire to indicate the intensity of bliss. So now we have a different understanding altogether of this playmate of Savitri, who is drifting with burning wings above her days. So we are not seeing anything that Savitri has to go through as yet. He's just describing what she is, that she has come to earth, and then there's a colon after the word days, because Sri Aurobindo wants us to know that heaven's tranquil shield guarded the missioned child. So now we see she's still a child. Huh? This is not the full Savitri yet. That's going to come many, many, many cantos later. In the Book of Love, in the Book of Fate, in the book 7. So right now, she's a missioned child. What is a missioned child? Well, poetically would say it's someone who is on a mission, on a search or on a journey. You know? And now he's going to tell us about her youth. A glowing orbit was her early term. An orbit, of course, is the path that's usually elliptical and usually described by a planet or a satellite, especially around a celestial body like the sun. So now he's already giving us this feeling that Savitri is the sun. A glowing orbit was her early term. Years like gold raiment of the gods that pass. Raiment, clothing, garments. Her youth sat throned in calm felicity. She's a very happy child. Calm felicity. She's a divine child, no doubt. She's going to recognize herself as the mother one day. But right now, her youth sat throned. Now, when someone sits throne, it's like sitting on a throne. So her youth is sitting like on a throne in calm felicity. Now, a throne is always a chair occupied by an exalted person, a king or a queen, a leader. And here we have a third definition, a verb, to sit on the throne as a ruler. But here we have her youth sat throned in calm felicity. It's a verb. Throned. Interesting. But joy cannot endure until the end. And now I have to go to the next page. But what was the last line? Joy cannot endure until the end. And now he's going to tell us what's going to happen to her. And I know I'm going very slow, but this is very important. He tells us there is a darkness in terrestrial things that will not suffer long too glad a note. Now, to suffer here is a different definition. It means to endure something. It can also mean to tolerate or allow something. So it can also mean in other definitions, such as Christ saying, "Suffer the little children to come to me." It means allow in that sense. So here, that will not allow long too glad a note. So this darkness in terrestrial things will not suffer long too glad a note. Full stop. On her too closed the inescapable hand. It's an inevitable hand. It's impossible to escape, impossible to avoid. She has come down to earth to save the earth. She is the daughter of the sun. But she has to go through everything just as Sri Aurobindo had to go through everything. On her too closed the inescapable hand, the armed immortal bore the snare of time. Why is she armed? Because she's divine. But she's also immortal. She is not subject to death. Savitri cannot die. She is a self-born soul. And in Savitri, we find that word self-born twice. Once for Sri Aurobindo, once for Mother. So here we see that she's the armed immortal, bore, past tense of bear, the snare of time. The snare, of course, is something that traps us. One dealt with her who meets the burdened great. This is an interesting thing because we have to go through it a little bit more to understand what she is going to have to go through. So we don't know who this one is as yet, but we know that he meets Savitri because she is the burdened great. She bears a heavy load. Her burden is incredible. She has to bring her husband back from death. That's an incredible burden. She has to defeat death. So who is this one? Well, this one is a signer of the ordeal and the path. Now, a signer is one who is appointed or designated. So he's a designator of the ordeal, the severe test, and the path, the course of action or conduct, who chooses in this holocaust of the soul. Now, Sri Aurobindo is going to tell us here from the Mother. The Mother not only governs all from above, but she descends into this lesser triple universe. Impersonally, all things here, even the movements of the ignorance, are herself in veiled power, and her creations in diminished substance, her nature body and nature force. And they exist because, moved by the mysterious fiat of the Supreme, to work out something that was there in the possibilities of the infinite, she has consented to the great sacrifice and has put on, like a mask, the soul and forms of the ignorance. But personally, and this is so important because it applies to all these lines, but personally too, she has stooped to descend here into the darkness, that she may lead it to the light, into the falsehood and error, that she may convert it to the truth, into this death, that she may turn it to godlike life, into this world pain and its obstinate, narrow, and suffering, its obstinate sorrow and suffering, that she may end it in the transforming ecstasy of her sublime Ananda. In her deep and great love for her children, she has consented to put on herself the cloak of this obscurity, condescended to bear the attacks and torturing influences of the powers of the darkness and the falsehood, born to pass through the portals of the birth that is a death. Our birth is always a death. The moment we're born, we begin to die. Taken upon herself the pangs and sorrows and sufferings of the creation, since it seemed that thus alone could it be lifted to the light and joy and truth and eternal life. This is the great sacrifice, called sometimes the sacrifice of the Purusha, but much more deeply the Holocaust of Prakriti, the sacrifice of the Divine Mother. And now we understand this line, that Savitri chooses, after she meets this burdened great assigner of the ordeal and the path, who chooses in this Holocaust, this supreme sacrifice of the soul, death, fall, and sorrow as the spirit's goads. What are these spirit's goads? Well, we know what a goad is because it's what the boys use to move the sheep or the goats and keep them from straying off. And for us, a goad is something that prods us, that stimulates us. And that's usually the asuras or the rakshasas or the pisachas. Or it may be something from above that says, look, you have this wrong within you and this wrong within you, and you have to get rid of it. So, death, fall, and sorrow as the spirit's goads. Now he goes back to the assigner of the ordeal and the task. The dubious Godhead. So he is a Godhead, but he has a torch of pain. The dubious Godhead with his torch of pain. Now, dubious here is uncertain, ambiguous, I would say. We don't know why he is there, except that we have heard before that he's the assigner of the ordeal and the path. And he chooses in this Holocaust of the soul that Savitri has to go through, death, fall, and sorrow as the spirit's goads. The dubious Godhead with his torch of pain, because only by pain can man progress. It's a painful truth, but it is a truth. Because he says later in Savitri, or we all know that line, pain is the hammer of the gods to break a dull resistance in the mortal's heart. So, he lit up the chasm of the unfinished world. The chasm is the void of the unfinished world, and called her to fill with her vast self the abyss. So he's calling Savitri to fill with her vast self this great deep, this primal chaos. August and pitiless in his calm outlook. Now, August is majestic. So he's not an evil being at all. He's a grand being. He's someone of supreme dignity. He's revered, in fact. What does he do? Heightening the Eternal's dreadful strategy. Well, the Eternal this is a little difficult because it's a capital E. And Sri Aurobindo calls the eternal that which is cannot perish. It can only lose itself. All is eternal in the eternal spirit. Each is the whole eternal concealed. So here the eternal, we can say, is God. Heightening the eternal's dreadful strategy, he measured the difficulty with the might. So he is measuring the difficulty that Savitri has to go through, along with the might that she has, the power that she has. And therefore, and dug more deep the gulf that all must cross. And we all have to cross that gulf. Like a child's soul standing at the gates of hell, seeking for paradise, something like that. We all have to go through that. Assailing her divinest elements. To assailing them is to attack them, to attack her divinest elements. Then what did he do? He made her heart kin to the striving human heart, and forced her strength to its appointed road. The appointed road is a predetermined road. She has to go through it. She's taken this birth on earth in a human form in order to go through this. And her heart is kin. Kin, of course, is of the same kind. You could even say related, family, kinfolk. He made her heart kin to the striving human heart, and forced her strength to its appointed road. And I think probably we'll stop there for today, because there's a lot more that he's going to talk about Savitri and what she has to go through. We didn't do much, but that's our work. Not to do much, but to go as deeply as possible. Yeah. Yeah. But it gives us this humility to understand all that Mother has gone through for us. And he doesn't talk about Sri Aurobindo yet, because that's going to be in Canto 3 and Canto 5, all about Sri Aurobindo in the persona of Ashwapati. But right now it's just a beginning look at what the Divine Mother is doing upon the earth. And I think you all know that she and Sri Aurobindo are preparing the supermental bodies in the subtle physical, which is very, very close to our physical body. It could be in some hundreds of years that the supermental body will come. But we don't know, because time is different for us than it is for the divine. Namaste, all. Namaste. Namaste.